for keeping the lights on, for the security of our electricity and energy supply. You do an absolutely vital job in our country. In the coming years, we're investing in nuclear power, investing in renewable energy, new gas plants. You're helping to build this extraordinary interconnector with Norway, which is going to be the deepest and longest one anywhere in the world. So thank you for what you do. You have to cope with those great power surges at the end of the nation's favorite television programs or big sporting events. So although Karen used to be associated with Birmingham City, of course, I'm hoping for the big moment when Villa win the FA Cup and the whole of Birmingham stops to have a cup of tea, and you'll have to cope with that power surge. Well, I can dream, can't I? I think that's only fair. Second thing I want to thank you for is this announcement today about apprenticeships. Because today, companies across our country are announcing 16,000 new apprenticeships. And here at National Grid, you're announcing 500 of them. Now, we've made this promise that while we've trained 2 million apprentices in this Parliament, we want to hit 3 million in the next Parliament, and National Grid is one of the companies that's helping us to do that. So thank you. As Karen said, I think it's absolutely vital that more young people get the chance of learning a skill, learning a trade, that we have that choice between either taking an apprenticeship or going to university. And we've uncapped the number of university places, but we've also massively increased the number of apprenticeships, which I think is good for our country. Now, before answering your questions, I just wanted to say a word about this election campaign that we're in the middle of, because it can be a bit baffling, elections. You've got the red team attacking the blue team, the yellow team having a go at the purple team, and press releases flying and speeches being made. And what is it all about? Well, to me, it is all about one word. My plan is about one word, and that word is security. The security of a good job, the security of living in a country that is safe, the security of being able to keep more of your own money to spend as you choose, because financial security is key, the security of a home, the security of knowing your family is safe. That's, to me, what it all comes down to. And what we've been doing these last 5 years is turning our economy around, getting our deficit down, living within our means, creating jobs, getting our economy growing, but it's all had a purpose. And the purpose of it is to say to people in our country that we want to give more security to you, to your family, to our country, to live the life that you can achieve. And I just want to bring out a couple of the things where I think we can really help with people's security in the coming years. Now, it starts with a job. Over the last 5 years, almost 2 million more people have got a job in our country. Here in the East Midlands, 131,000 more people are in work than when I became Prime Minister. Now, just as we've created 2 million jobs in this Parliament, I want to make sure we create another 2 million jobs in the next Parliament. I want to make sure that young people have that chance of a job, of an apprenticeship, of a place at a university. So it starts with a job. But as I've just said, it's not just about jobs, it's about a career. It's about knowing that the job you have is going to lead on to a satisfying and fulfilling career. And I want us to have a country where when young people leave school, there isn't that path that's available to go school, dole, housing benefit, life of dependency. There is for everybody the chance of an apprenticeship or a university place or good training so you can forge a real career for yourself. So that is the first bit of security, the security of a job. The second is financial security. I want to make sure that you can keep more of the money that you earn. So we've just introduced a new personal allowance at £10,600, so you can earn that amount of money before you pay any income tax at all. That's lifted 3 million of the lowest paid people out of tax. We're going to increase that to £12,500, so that if you're on minimum wage and you work a 30-hour week, you will pay no income tax at all. I want you to be able to keep more of your hard-earned money to spend as you choose. You're going to hear from other parties about wanting to spend more money, increase borrowing. In the end, that comes down to a potential cut of your pay, reaching into your pay packet and taking your money. I want you to keep more of that money. But security isn't just about a job and financial security. Security is also about being able to achieve your dreams. And for many people, they dream of something that I'm delighted to have achieved, which is owning your own home. So we need to build more homes in our country. We need to build more starter homes that young people can afford to buy. And we've got a plan to build 200,000 and to sell them at 80% of the normal market price. And we're backing that with our Help to Buy scheme, where we help you to get the deposit together to put down on a flat or a house so that you can have a place of your own. So the security of owning your own flat or your home. But security is also about your family. It's about knowing that when you get married, when you have a partner, when you have children, that there's going to be a good school for them to go to. That's one of the most important bits of security that people want to see and feel in their lives. Now, under this government, we've got 1 million more children at good or outstanding schools, and I want us to see another 1 million created in the next Parliament. So more people, not only hear, as Karen said, those magic words of you're hired, but also those magic words of you've got a great school place for your child and you've got security for your family. Now, I know that many of you are just starting out on your working career, so the last bit of security I'm going to say may sound a bit odd, but I don't think it is at all. I think one of the most fundamental pieces of security is the idea of dignity and security in retirement. That when you've worked hard, when you've earned money, when you've saved, when you've put in, you should be able to look forward to dignity and security in old age with a state pension that always increases under our plans by either prices or wages or 2.5%, whichever is the highest. That so-called triple lock has given pensioners in our country an extra £950 in the basic state pension compared with when I became Prime Minister. And we're going to keep that up over the next Parliament. Because I think, however old we are, however young we are, we all believe that we should treat elderly people with dignity and respect. They have built this country. They've done amazing things for us, and we owe them that security, that word again, in old age. So that's the plan. When we talk about this plan, that's what it's all about. It's a plan for you. It's not a plan for numbers on a page or arcane, dry and dusty economic statistics. It's a plan about security for British people, for British families, security for our country. And apprenticeships are an absolutely key part of that plan. And what you're doing here at National Grid, 500 apprenticeships announced today, is a vital part of that security. So thank you once again. Thank you for listening. And I'm ready to take any questions. Who wants to go first? If you raise your hand, there are roving microphones. Start with the gentleman here. And you can ask about anything you like.
In your opinion, how important are engineers to the British economy?
Absolutely. How important are engineers to the British economy? Vitally important. I think for too long in our country, the idea was that we could just hitch the fortunes of the country to the City of London and the south of our country, and that somehow would be enough as an economic strategy. And I think that was a disastrous strategy, and it all went wrong when the financial collapse took place and the banks needed to be backed up and all the rest of it. And we need a rebalanced economy. We need to make more things, we need to design more things, we need to sell more things around the world, and engineering is an absolutely key part of that. Now, you can't just order up some more engineers out of nowhere. You've got to encourage the things that make great engineers. You've got to encourage maths and science at school. You've got to have great teachers teaching these things. You've got to make sure we've got university departments with science subjects and with engineering. And the good news is that is changing. There are now more young people studying maths and science. Maths A-level is now, and I speak as someone who doesn't have a maths A-level, I'm embarrassed to say, maths A-level is now the most popular subject. And so we're seeing more people studying engineering, more people studying engineering at university, and we're also, I think, raising the profile of engineering in our country, not least through the Your Life campaign, but also through engineering prizes, where we now have the Queen Elizabeth Prize for Engineering to celebrate great engineering in our country. So it's absolutely vital. We are seeing a manufacturing revival in Britain. All the different bits of our economy are growing, not just services, but construction and manufacturing and engineering. We're a great engineering nation, and we need to rediscover that. It starts right back at school, and it is happening in our country. Gentleman right back here. There's a microphone there coming past the circuit breaker.
Hi. The election's currently forecast to be tight, with more minority parties having a greater share of the vote, potentially. If that happens, obviously when we get into a parliament, they're all on the same team, part of a team which is working to get the best for the UK. And it's going to need strong leadership to actually get the best for the UK and manage that. And something I find very important in a leader is honesty and integrity. Talking straight and honest answers to questions, admitting when you get things wrong and right, and when others have good ideas. And also being respectful to other people and not personally attacking them. So, you know, not attacking people for what they look like or where they went to school, things like that. That hasn't always happened in politics. Should you become Prime Minister again, will you do anything differently to what you've done in the last 5 years?
Well, what I'd like to do different, first of all, I agree with you. I think, you know, we should try to be respectful in the way we conduct our political debate. I think generally speaking in Britain we are. It's a pretty feisty democracy. We have big arguments, big disagreements, but actually when it's necessary to come together for the national good, whether we're fighting terrorism or we're sending troops into harm's way or those things, I found actually as Prime Minister that at those moments the different politicians and political parties do come together. But here's what I would say. Look, in the last Parliament, we didn't have a majority. I had to do what I thought was the right thing, which was to come together with another political party who've been, you know, opposed to what I've been saying and doing just as they've been opposed to me. And we formed a coalition, the first in 70 years in our country's history. Now, a lot of people said this wouldn't last. It would last about 10 minutes or 6 months. It's lasted 5 years. And I think I've demonstrated I can work with other parties and show them the respect and work in partnership and actually get quite a lot of things done. I think a lot of people thought this coalition wouldn't achieve anything. Actually, we have seen a growth in the economy, the creation of jobs, creation of better schools, we've reformed welfare, we've got people off the dole. But here's what I'd like to do differently in the next Parliament, is actually I think it is time for a single party government. I think it's more accountable. And I'll tell you why. When you have a coalition, you inevitably have to take your manifesto and someone else's manifesto and you go into a dark room and you have to make exchanges and deals. And people don't actually get what they vote for. And I think we're ready as a country to have a single party government with a more decisive, more accountable government. And that is what I hope to do different next time, with your permission and help. Sir.
Hi, David. Just got a quick question, because obviously you talked about security. When you get re-elected, if you get re-elected, what are your plans for supporting manufacturing and engineering? Just want to know your plans.
Support manufacturing and engineering. I think there's some big things we have to do. You've got to keep a strong economy. I think manufacturers want to know that taxes aren't going to go shooting up. They want to know that interest rates are going to be stable. They want to know your economy is strong and stable. And we've tried to create that. So we've cut taxes that business pay, corporation tax, down to 20% from 28%. So it's now the lowest rate virtually anywhere of the advanced countries. So companies know that if they invest, if they come and build businesses here, that it's a strong and stable country. I think it's one of the most important things we can do. But I think manufacturers have some particular needs that we need to pay attention to. And let me just pull out a few. One is transport. You know, if you're a manufacturer, you've got to move your goods around the country. You've got to have good ports, good rail services, good road services. And infrastructure has been underinvested in our country for years. We've started to put that right. For instance, electrifying the Midlands Main Line, the starting on HS2, which I think is an important national project, improving port infrastructure. We've got the biggest railway investment since Victorian times and biggest road investment since the 1970s. So I think that is crucial. I think the other thing manufacturing really does need is training and skills, which is why this issue of apprenticeships and the whole rebirth of apprenticeships that's taking place in Britain is so vital. The third thing I'd pull out is this connection between science and engineering and manufacturing. And that's why, although we had to take difficult decisions, we had to make some cuts in some areas, we actually protected the science budget. And because of the decisions we took about university funding, which were very controversial, our universities are well funded. And so now what I can see around our country is some of the best funded universities anywhere in Europe, linked to these new science institutes that are helping to produce great scientists, great inventions, great patents that then can go into manufacturing. So I think there's some general economic things you've got to get right and keep right, and there are some special things to help manufacturers. And you know, just to pull out one example, the car industry. It's quite an iconic industry in manufacturing. You know, for the first time since the 1970s, we are a net exporter of cars again in our country. Jaguar Land Rover's doing brilliantly, but also the inward investors like the Toyotas and the Nissans. Nissan in Sunderland now make more cars than the whole of Italy. That is, you know, that shows that we've got a manufacturing revival going on, but we've got to keep it going with the low taxes, the stable economy, and the plan that's working. Lady here.
What do you see as the key enablers for a low-carbon economy?
The key enablers for a low-carbon economy. I think the first thing is we've got to make sure, it goes to what you all do here at the National Grid, you need a good integrated system that can make sure you've got the balanced and secure electricity supplies. But I think the key enablers are having a fiscal regime and an energy regime that encourages the new low-carbon industries to develop. And we've seen a big change in this country over the last 5 to 10 years. Actually, under this government, the amount of investment in renewable energy has almost trebled. We've now got the biggest offshore wind market, I think, anywhere in the world. We've seen a growth in onshore wind. That's now making a contribution, and I think that's probably making now a big enough contribution. But you've also got, key, I think, for low carbon, you've got to reinvest in the nuclear industry. Wind power is helpful, but because of the intermittency issue, you need some baseload power. So in my view, that's got to come from gas, which we're investing in, but also we need to rebuild our nuclear industry. Now, this has been a very big decision for this government because we haven't built a nuclear power station, for, 13, 14 years since Sizewell. And we made the big decision to invest in Hinkley Point. That is now soon to go ahead. And then you've got the additional nuclear power stations that are coming in Wilver and elsewhere in our country. So I think the new green technologies, make sure there's a good regime for them, but you've got to have the baseload that nuclear provides. And then you've got the ability to meet the carbon targets that we've set out as a country. So I think we're on track. And if you look around the rest of Europe, some countries have given up on nuclear. I think that's a mistake. Some countries are anti the new green renewable energies. I think that's a mistake. I'm not saying we're perfect, but we've got investment in gas, investment in nuclear, big offshore wind industry, looking at other renewables as well. And we've got the interconnectors with France and this new one with Norway that I think gives us very secure, relatively low carbon supplies of electricity. Now what we've got to do is make sure we do it at the lowest cost. The consumer wants to know, yes, we're taking the carbon out, but can we do it as cheaply as possible so we keep people's bills down? Sir, hold on, microphone, you can...
As National Grid apprentices, we've got a really good hourly wage, but why is the minimum wage for other apprentices so low?
It is too low, and we've just decided to put it up. I think you're completely right. The way the minimum wage works is that there's a body called the Low Pay Commission that advises the government on what the right level of the minimum wage is so that people can earn a living, but it doesn't cause unemployment. And it's independent, which I think is right, and it makes its recommendations. And the recent recommendation for the overall minimum wage has seen it rise now to £6.70 an hour. And it's on course to go through £7 and through and above £8 before the next general election. And that's good. I want to see a growth in the minimum wage. The minimum wage is working. I want to see it uprated. But the last set of recommendations didn't really recommend an increase or only a very small increase in the apprentice minimum wage, which was only £2.70 an hour. And I just thought that, we shouldn't be asking anyone to work on that, and that's why it's now going up to £3.30. We overruled the Low Pay Commission and said, let's increase it to a better and a higher level. So we have intervened. I think that's right. What we need in our country is, I think, that right balance so that employers feel that it's right to invest in apprenticeships, to put the money in, put the training in, and make it worthwhile for them. But it's also got to be worthwhile for the people taking part. And I want us to be an economy where increasingly people are earning more money. And not only are they earning more money, but they're keeping more of what they earn. And that's why this pledge about raising the tax threshold to 10,600 and keep raising it to 12,500 is so important. As I said, I want someone not on the £3.30 minimum wage, but someone on the £6.70 minimum wage to be able to work 30 hours a week and pay no income tax at all. It's your money, you work for it, you should be able to keep it. Lady here.
Tamara Cohen from the Daily Mail.
Hello.
Prime Minister, following on from your answer to the gentleman's question about respecting each other in politics, your Defence Secretary said this morning that Ed Miliband stabbed the United Kingdom in the back if he and the SNP got into power. Is that negative campaigning?
No, I think that Michael Fallon is making a very important point, which he's saying, look, we're talking about security today. One part of security, as I've said, is economic security, the security of a job, the security of a regular wage, the security of having lower taxes. But a vital part of our security is our national security. Now, at the base of our national security is the idea that in a dangerous and difficult and insecure world, we should have that independent nuclear deterrent. We should have it permanently at sea, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, because we never know what threats will emerge in our world. Now, my party, the Conservative Party, has committed to replacing the 4 Trident submarines, to making sure we have what it takes to maintain our independent nuclear deterrent. I think that is absolutely essential. And when I listen to what Labour are saying, they are playing fast and loose with the country's security. They don't know whether they're going to have 4 submarines or 3 submarines. And meanwhile, they are saying, effectively, they're happy for Ed Miliband to get into number 10 Downing Street with the support of Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP. Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP are saying it is a red line for them that Trident won't be replaced. So here's the thing. We need an answer from Labour. Are you really committed to the Trident deterrent? Are you going to have 4 submarines? And can you rule out any arrangement where the SNP put you into power and hold you there, knowing that they want more borrowing, more spending, more unlimited welfare, more debt, and less secure defences without a Trident replacement? I think that is a really serious issue, and that is why Michael Fallon is absolutely right to raise this, and yes, raise it in a pretty frank way as he did today. Let's have gentleman here.
Prime Minister, if re-elected for a second term, you say that your government's priority will be to eliminate the deficit. When this has been achieved, how will it impact your ability to improve our public services and reduce taxes?
Right, very good point. Look, why do we worry so much about this deficit? Let's kind of go to the big, as they say I think it's in Finland, they say, let's put the cat on the table. Great expression. Why do we worry about this deficit? I tell you why I worry about it. It's our annual overdraft. It's the amount we're borrowing every year. And if you go on borrowing every year, you go on building up your debts. And the more you build up your debts, the more interest you have to pay on your debts. Today, we're paying something like £47 billion of interest on the debt. That's £47 billion we can't spend on our schools or on our hospitals or on our armed services. So at one very simple level, making sure we eliminate the deficit and we start paying down the debt will actually free up money for more public services. But there's a more direct connection, which is if you've got a big budget deficit, you risk having higher interest rates. You risk losing jobs. You risk hurting the hard-working people that you're trying to reward. So on every level, it is right to eliminate our deficit and start paying down our debt. And here's something I feel very, very deeply as a Conservative, which is, in politics, you can't just think of what are we doing for the current generation. You've got to think, what are we going to leave to our children and our grandchildren? Now, if we just go on, as Labour proposed, borrowing more every year, year after year, building up those debts, we're going to put an unsustainable burden on our children and our grandchildren, and that isn't right. So I think this is not ideological, this is deeply practical, sensible, moderate. What we're saying is by 2018, if the economy keeps growing as it is, we would have had 7 continuous years of economic growth. By 2018, surely we should be starting to put money aside for a rainy day rather than borrowing more of it. Why does that matter so much? Well, what happens when the next shock or next problem comes along? I want to make sure as a country we've got the capacity to deal with that shock or that problem. So what we're saying, as I say, not ideological, deeply practical, is by 2017, 2018, we should be paying down these debts and putting aside money for a rainy day. That's the sensible thing to do. And there's an absolutely direct connection with what we can put into our public services. Because if you keep on borrowing at this level, then you don't have the money because you're paying the debt interest. And that's not a sensible use of the country's resources. Gentleman here.
Prime Minister, going back to encouraging apprenticeships and engineering, with regards to STEM, as you briefly touched upon, how are you going to encourage STEM-related subjects? Does this come from home, as in parents, or does this come from school, as in teachers? How are you going to encourage this?
Well, it'd be great if some of it came from home, but sometimes you've got families like mine where I didn't do maths and sciences, and my wife didn't do maths and sciences, so we need it to, we'll do our best with our children, but we need it to be in school too. So we are making sure that we hire I think it's an extra 17,000 maths teachers. We want quality graduates with high degrees. Some of them will be paying off their student loans to encourage them to go into teaching. So I think school is absolutely vital. And we're getting children now coding in primary school to work out how to write code, because it's mathematics, but it's at the heart of how apps and modern computers work. But I think you need something more than just school and home. You also need the inspiration of seeing what science can achieve. So I would say everything from the European space program to trying to beat the land speed record, to the fact that we are landing on fast-traveling comets with high-degree cameras. All of these things have the capacity to inspire young people to study science subjects. But really, what we'll know whether we're getting it right by the numbers of children studying the GCSEs in maths and science and the numbers going on to university. And as I said in an earlier answer, this is good news at the moment. The numbers studying are going up, the number studying maths is going up, and the number of people studying science at university is going up. I think we also need to change the image sometimes of engineering, because of course engineering includes not just the mechanical engineering, of manufacturing and designing new cars, but engineering includes genetic engineering, chemical engineering, computer science and engineering. It is a multifaceted area now. We need perhaps to get that across better to young people. Some of these science fairs and apprenticeship fairs we now hold across the country are making a big difference too. Let's have some more questions. Let's have the lady here.
How can the government help to address the problem of students leaving school and university with qualifications but no real work experience?
I think we need more work experience from school. I think sometimes companies have withdrawn from it because they found all the health and safety and the bureaucracy and all of that too much of an issue. So I want to see good work experience programs. I do everything I can to encourage businesses to get back into schools and to talk to schools about work experience. We need to make sure that there's better career guidance in schools, and we're doing that through the new National Careers Organisation, which is rolling out across the country. One of the things I think a lot of young people in school don't hear enough about is actually apprenticeships. Because, and this is not a criticism of teachers, but lots of teachers have been on the path of A-levels, filling out the UCAS form, going to university. They're familiar with that pathway, and they could advise young people about that pathway. But they're not always as qualified in explaining what apprenticeships can offer. And I was at the Ford plant at Dagenham the other day and talking to some apprentices who'd done a 4-year apprenticeship, I think it was, after school, 4 years. And I was asking them what they expected to earn at the end of that 4 years. And the answer was, they were expecting to earn as much as £30,000 in their first post-apprenticeship year. Now, often when you say that to parents, they're surprised, because that's more in many cases than university graduates would be earning after 4 years or 3 years at university. So I think more information, more careers information, and frankly, more information about what the outcomes are if you study different courses at universities, colleges, or apprenticeships. Let's publish more of the information so young people themselves can see what a degree in English at this university or a degree in engineering at that university, where it's likely to lead. Publish the information and let the young people decide. Let's have some more questions. Gentleman here.
Do you think the government should do more to encourage professional registration amongst engineers at all levels, so Eng-Tech all the way to C-Eng, to ensure that the UK has a higher quality of engineers, not just quantity?
Tell me a bit about how you think that would work in terms of the registration. There's always a balance, isn't there, between putting bureaucratic burdens on people but also wanting to raise the level of the professionalism. What's your view about this?
Well, I think that companies need to kind of encourage it a little bit more, but I think if the government kind of sets up contracts, HS2, for example, if you decide to set up a contract for that, you could actually ask for professional engineers to be involved in it, especially apprenticeships. They could go for the Eng-Tech, they could work towards it. And having that in the contract then means that companies will then encourage it more.
I think that's one for me to take away and think about. The problem here can be, one of the things we're trying to do is make sure that we work with small companies as well as big ones. So when we have government contracts, you don't simply let those contracts go to the very big businesses. You try and open up to small businesses that can bring their ideas along. And if you add too many complications and qualifications, that can lock out some of the small businesses. I think one thing we can do better, and I think we are doing now more of, is when we've got these really big contracts, engineering contracts, like, for instance, the Olympics, Crossrail, massive, HS2, is work with the employers, large and small, to plan better the flow of apprentices and trained engineers that we're going to need, and make sure the colleges are properly tooled up and staffed up and ready to go. So when we look at Hinkley Point in Somerset, I mean, it's quite a remote part of our country, but that's going to be a massive employer of engineers and scientists and others. And so we need to work with all the local colleges around that area to make sure, whether it's a small company operating a subcontract or a big one, we're training people up, rather than, frankly, see them come in from overseas and do jobs that we should be training our own people to do if we get this right. I've got a couple more. Lady here. Hold on. Here we go.
How can the government help increase the number of women in engineering whilst avoiding positive discrimination?
Well, I think this is a really big one, because, you know, for years it just wasn't seen as a sort of an attractive career destination for women, and this was wrong, really, because there are incredibly talented women engineers in every part of engineering, from construction, civil engineering, through to computer engineering and all the rest of it. I think we are beginning to really get on top of that. I think this Your Life campaign that we're running with businesses and schools is making a difference. I think successful women engineers getting back into schools and colleges and saying, look at the great career I'm having. The idea that this is all, you know, stuff with an oily rag is a completely outdated view of engineering. But it goes back to school. It goes back to making sure that as we get young people in school to study the sciences and maths, that we start getting them to lift up their eyes of all the careers it could lead to. And I think one of the things that's happened in the past a lot is girls studying sciences at school have often seen it as a pathway through to studying medicine, but haven't necessarily thought as much about engineering. And so it's really quite early on, when people are 11, 12, 13, you want to start making them think about, actually, if you choose these subjects, you could be anything from a nuclear scientist to an astronaut to designing the next high-performance car. It's really getting in early on. And I think that's what we haven't done enough of. But I think this new national careers is going to make a difference. I think Your Life campaign is going to make a difference. I think getting engineers into schools will make a difference. And then very high-profile, successful women engineers saying, look at this as a role model about what you can achieve. Do all of those things, and we've got a real chance. Lady here.
Prime Minister, as a first-time voter, what would you say to convince me to vote for your party during this election?
Right, well, what I'd say very, very simply is I think this country is on the right track. I'm not saying we've solved all the country's problems, but we've turned the economy around, we're getting the deficit down, we've created almost 2 million jobs. I think we're on the brink of something important for our country, which is, having sorted out the problems in the economy, we can now really turn that into a plan for you and your future, so that you can have that good job, you can keep more of your own money to spend as you choose, there's a prospect of buying your own home, there'll be good school places for your children. It comes back to that word, security. That is really what I'm offering. And politics is a choice in the end. You'll hear other things from other people, but I'm very clear. In the end, I think this election comes down to, shall we carry on the right track, building a stronger country with real opportunity and security for people, or do we kind of go back to where we started from, borrowing more, spending more, taxing more, all the things that got us into the mess in the first place? So I say, stick to the track, stick to the team, stick to the plan. That hasn't solved all the country's problems, but I think we're on our way, and we're really focused on what it means for you and your family. That would be it. Last question from anyone. Got a last one for me? Gentleman back here. Microphone on its way. There's also the point, I should say, Mark Spencer, where is he? Your very good local MP, works incredibly hard here in Sherwood, and that's another good reason to vote, in that he will help you solve any problems you've got. You can go to his constituency surgery, you can fix anything, Mark, can't you? Pretty much. There we are. Very good.
I was just wondering what you will be doing to entice companies to build houses for first-time buyers.
Right, what are we going to do to entice companies to build houses for first-time buyers? Well, lots is the short answer. You've got to act on this from every single angle. When I became Prime Minister, this market wasn't working. And it wasn't working because the banks had been badly damaged by the recession, and they weren't lending the money to people who could actually afford mortgage payments. They couldn't pay the big deposits. So the lenders weren't lending, the buyers couldn't buy, and as a result, the builders weren't building. So we weren't building enough houses. Now, we have cracked through that in a number of ways. First of all, we've changed the planning system. We've made it simpler to put forward planning applications to build houses. We took about 40,000 pages and we turned it into 50 pages and we simplified the system. Second thing we did, and we'll go on doing, is we introduced Help to Buy, which basically said, if you can go and get a mortgage off a bank or a building society for 75% of the value of the property, we'll give you the extra up to 90 or 95% of the value of the property so that actually you can go ahead and own that home. Because I was finding loads of people who had a decent job, they had a decent salary, they could afford the mortgage payments, they just couldn't afford the deposit. They didn't have a rich mum and dad, they were living at home or they were renting, and they were finding their rent was probably higher than the mortgage payments they'd pay. So we'll keep on with Help to Buy. But here are two new things we're going to do that I'm very excited about. The first one is the Help to Buy ISA. So you take out a savings product, an ISA, an individual savings account, and for every £200 you put in, the government will put in £50 to help you build up that money for a deposit. And I think that will really help young people get the money together for a deposit. And the second thing we're doing, which I mentioned in my opening remarks, is that we're going to try and build 200,000 starter homes, which we're going to take off the builders some of the normal obligations and costs and say, right, you've got to build these homes for 80% of the normal market price, but they are homes for sale, not homes for rent, and they can only be bought by people under the age of 40. They can't be bought by buy-to-let landlords. They can't be bought by foreign investment funds or anything like that. They are homes built for you, for local people under the age of 40, to get your foot on the housing ladder. So I think if we do those things, keep the planning system simple and straightforward, clear the brownfield land sites so that we can build on those, keep Help to Buy because it's working, have the Help to Buy ISA to help you get the deposit, and then build the starter homes. If we do all those things, I think we can build what I've always dreamed of, which is the property-owning democracy, where if you work hard and you've got a decent job, you should be able to own a flat or a home of your own. It shouldn't be out of people's reach. And I think that would be a really great achievement for the next government that I hope to lead. Thank you very much indeed for the welcome. Thank you for the questions. It's been great being here. Thank you very much indeed.